you feel like you're paying too much in child support, or maybe you feel like you're not getting enough from your ex. Hi everybody, I'm Sean Ramirez, a divorce and custody attorney here at Frazier Ramirez Law in Albuquerque. Under New Mexico law, both parents have an obligation to provide support for their children. Calculating child support in New Mexico is both straightforward and very complicated. Now, why is that the case? Well, it's straightforward because New Mexico has child support guidelines that give an exact amount to be paid in each situation. If you have the monthly gross income of each party, the amount that's paid for health insurance premiums, and the amount for work-related childcare expenses, then it's kind of easy. However, it can get complicated when questions arise as to what exactly counts as gross income. What if one parent isn't working, and how do I determine how much time each parent has with the children? What we're going to do is walk through a sample child support worksheet provided by the New Mexico courts, and we'll discuss some of the issues at each stage. I provided a link in the notes below, or you can just Google New Mexico Child Support Worksheet. Let's get started.
All right, so if you don't have the link, you can just go to your search bar and type in New Mexico Child Support Worksheets, and it should pop up here. And it's this one right here from the New Mexico courts, so I will click on that. And let me zoom in a bit, because it's kind of small on the left side of the screen there. So this is it. There's some disclaimer information here, an introduction. You don't have to worry too much about that. You can click next. And so the first thing it asks is for your case number. And you don't have to do this. This is just something that it will generate if you're trying to generate an official looking child support worksheet that you need for court. But if you're just trying to run the numbers, then you can do that. But I'm just going to put in something for Bernalillo County. Doesn't really matter. 2020, let's say, and 0001. All right, next. So here it's going to ask what county you're in, and we put Bernalillo. Again, not necessary, but it creates the form. Mother's first name, we'll go with Jane Doe. Is she the petitioner or the respondent? So the petitioner is the person that filed the initial petition. Let's say that she's the petitioner. And then what is father's first name? So that is Dick Doe. All right. And now the question here is, who is the custodial parent? And it gives you a little help here. It says that's the parent who has the children more of the time. If it's 50-50, then it kind of doesn't matter, but it's going to define who's the custodial parent on the chart. So for our purposes here, we're going to say mother. And then it's going to ask you some questions about gross monthly income, and this just gives you some background about exactly what that means, which we'll talk about. So at this point, what you'll do is you'll enter the gross income for both the custodial parent and for the other parent. And ideally, you have some pay stubs you can go off of to figure out how that works. And we can talk a little bit about that. But let's say that mother is only minimum wage. She works 40 hours a week. And so we got to figure that out. Maybe we don't have the pay stubs. That's just kind of what's been represented. So in Albuquerque, for example, minimum wage is $9.20 an hour times 40 hours a week. So that's $368 a week. And then we're going to multiply that times 52 weeks in the year. So she makes $19,136, but it's asking for gross monthly income. So we're going to divide by 12. And we get $15.94 and 67 cents. We're just going to put in $15.94. Okay, and let's say that for father, we have pay stubs. And the pay stubs show that he makes, let's say we've got 3 pay stubs. And he makes $2,500 in one 2-week period. He made $2,350 in another 2-week period. And then he made $2,400 in another 2-week period. So he made $7,250 over 6 weeks. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide this by 6 to find out what he made on average per week during that time period. And so this is what he earns per week. And so I'm going to now multiply this times 52 to see what this would average out to over the year. $62,000 divided by 12, because again, we want that monthly amount. So we're going to put in here 5236. Okay, so next. Now the question is, what are the number of children? And it says enter a number between 1 and 6. If there are more than 6 children, the worksheet doesn't quite know how to calculate that based off some tables. If you have more than 6 children, then the court has to kind of figure out what works best. But let's say that there are 2 children. Okay. Do either parent pay health and dental insurance premium? So this is what usually would come out of your paycheck for health insurance. This doesn't count co-pays or medical expenses or prescription expenses. This is just what comes out for that health insurance premium. Typically, it's only one parent. It could be both parents depending on the situation, but usually it's only one. And so what you have to figure out is first are the children on Medicaid, in which case nothing gets entered here. If they're not on Medicaid and you have some sort of employer provided health insurance or through some other means, you have to figure out how much that amount is. So let's say that mom manages to pay. She's the one that pays the health insurance premiums, and she gets taken out from her paycheck, let's say $100, but that covers her and that covers the 2 kids. So what you would have to do is you would have to figure out what portion of that $100 is actually going to cover the kids. And you might be able to figure this out. There might be some materials that your health insurance provider provides for you that tells you exactly what you get or what you pay for the children. Sometimes we do this kind of down and dirty method where we say, okay, it's $100, but this covers 3 people, covers mom and the 2 kids. So we're going to say that 2/3 of this is for the kids. So times 2 divided by 3 is $66. So I'm going to put in $66 here. Dad doesn't pay anything for health insurance premiums. And now, are there any work-related childcare expenses? So this applies simply to work-related daycare or any other, babysitting, nanny, whatever. But it has to be work-related. So if mom weren't working or if dad weren't working and they still had like daycare, maybe for some developmental reasons or whatever, then it wouldn't count. Let's say that they pay $500 a month and dad picks up the bill for that, and 0 for mom. All right. So now there's some additional expenses that can get added in. This rarely gets added in. This is for extraordinary medical, dental, counseling expenses, extraordinary educational expenses, for transportation, if there's going to be some sort of long distance visitation. Again, typically this doesn't get used, and so we're going to leave these blank here, where you just put 0 in, doesn't matter. All right, now this is a big question here. How many 24-hour periods are the children with each parent? The reason this is important is because there are 2 worksheets that are going to be produced, or one of 2 worksheets. There's a worksheet A or a worksheet B. Worksheet A is for basic visitation, and this is where one parent has the children more than 35% of the time. Worksheet B is what's called a shared responsibility worksheet, which means that both parents have at least 35% of the time. Usually if it's a 50-50 situation, that's what we'll use. So we're going to run this both ways. I'm going to show it to you both ways. So let's say that it's 50-50 right now. So what I do is I pick one parent to put in for 183, which is half of 365, the other parent for 182. You can't do 182.5. It needs whole numbers for this. So this is 50-50 essentially. Someone gets a little bit more of an advantage here, but it's fine. It's going to be a couple, $1 or $2 difference. All right, so hit next, and that's it. So now you click Create Form, and here we go. Let's zoom out a little bit. So here's all this information that we filled in here, and now this shows the gross income that we've inputted here. It shows you the percentage of income that the parties have. So of the income that the parties have total, mother has 23%, father has 76%, and this again shows the days that they're with each parent. And here's the health insurance premium, here's the work-related childcare expense, and end result is that father pays mother $401 each month. So this is a result because father has some more income, and additionally, things like the health insurance and the work-related childcare expenses kind of get taken into account. The $401 is what father pays mother each month. All right, let's go back. Let's go back and say that it's not 50-50. Okay, so I'm going to come just back up here. Usually, depends on your browser, but it usually keeps all that information in there. And let's say instead that mother pretty much has the children most of the time. Maybe father has weekends. So and we can figure that out here. Let's say that father has every weekend. So that is 2 days times 52 weeks. So father has 104 days. And mother has 261 days. Okay. So now we go back to create form, and you can see this looks a little bit different. It's not quite as long as the last form because now we're on this worksheet A. The other one said worksheet B. And so now Dick Doe pays Jane Doe each month $825. It virtually doubled the child support. And the idea there is because in a worksheet A situation, the custodial parent is the parent that is bearing most of the costs for the day-to-day food expenses, possibly medical expenses, just for little incidental stuff. And so that's why when there's a less visitation or less time sharing, that we go to the worksheet A. Now let's go back real quick, and we're going to go all the way to the top. This is all one document, all the way back to the top, and let's talk about this gross income again. So I'm just kind of scrolling down to the gross income. And what can happen here, this is where there can be the biggest fight, is figuring out this gross income. If you have pay stubs, it's usually pretty easy, although sometimes there's going to be a fight over what gets used. Should overtime get used? Usually it will get used. But sometimes you have a parent that's not working. So let's say that mother is not working. So we have to make a decision here. Do we impute income to her, meaning do we, even though she's not earning something, we still put a number in here because she should be working? And if so, how much? So first, there's a law that says that if the custodial parent is taking care of a child of the parties who is under age 6, then income need not be imputed to her. So we would put $0 in here. So let's say that one of the kids is school age 8, the other kid is 2. So we don't have to impute, court doesn't have to impute income. So if we go to the end of the document and we click create form, now father's child support payment has jumped up to $1,043. All right, so that's pretty significant. Instead, we go back and maybe both kids are school age, and so mother should be working. And as long as there's no good reason for her not to be, there's not some sort of disability, then more than likely the court is going to impute some income. How much income depends. At a minimum, the court will typically impute minimum wage. Again, that's where you figure out what that is. And so that's where we took our $15.94. If in the past, mother has had a job, maybe mother had a decent paying job and then she got fired for cause. Well, the argument would then be, well, she should be imputed whatever income she was previously making. It's not father's fault that she lost her job, and the kids still need to be taken care of. And this is typically an incentive for mother to go back out and try and get a job similar to what she had. A lot of times we'll hear about people saying, well, I'm just going to quit my job, or I'm going to go get a minimum wage job instead of the high paying job that I had. And so the court can impute income to make sure that parents don't try and kind of game the system like that. And that covers the basics of how to use this online New Mexico child support worksheet from the New Mexico courts.
So as we've seen using the worksheet, it's pretty straightforward, but determining what figures need to be plugged in can vary greatly and can result in some pretty different amounts of child support that are actually ordered. Hopefully this gives you a jumping off point and makes you aware of some of the issues to consider in your child support case. Once again, this has been Sean Ramirez from Frazier Ramirez Law.